Okay, so I have a set of wings that needs to be fixed up a little bit. After you use your wings for, I don't know, these have been through, I think, 5 or 6 heavy days, and I've shipped them about 6 times. So at this point, they're starting to get a little ragged, which feathers are fragile and they are on a moving structure, so they are going to eventually get messed up. The other thing that I did, do as I say and how does I do, the thing that I did that you shouldn't do is we were in a rush to get out of the con, and I had to pack everything up really quick and get to the airport, and I didn't have a time or a chance to preen them before I stored them in the box. And then when I got home, instead of taking them out and making sure that I got them all preened and pretty before storage, I just left them in the box for months. So unfortunately, that means it's kind of like when your hair is wet and you like leave it all crimped or whatever, or you put it in a ponytail, and when you take your hair out, like now it's just permanently kinked. That kind of happens with feathers too. They're very similar that way. So if you don't preen them after each use before storage, or even just after, between days that you're using them, they can eventually get mussed. And if you use them a lot, they're going to get mussed anyway. Again, they're fragile, they're moving around, so eventually you are going to have to start replacing feathers here and there that either are permanently mussed, they can break, or they're glued on so that you can pull them off and glue a new one on in its place if they do break. And so because of that, eventually that glue will wear down. If the feather's still good, you can just glue that same one back on, but sometimes you are going to have to just replace feathers, especially if they're in heavy use. So I'm going to go through and do what I can to fix these as best I can, and then replace any feathers that I can't fix. So the best way to do this, you can see these are pretty messed up, but feathers are meant, you see birds preening all the time because their wings also move, and so and this same exact thing happens to them, and so to maintain flight they have to be pristine. And so you'll see birds preening all the time, and all they're doing is, these are basically like little zippers. So they've got little barbs on either side of these little hairs that zip them together, and then they can pull apart. And so what we basically just need to do is like get that zipper engaged again by, first I'm gonna kind of, these are all glued to these larger base feathers. So what you're gonna do is kind of pull away from that so that you have a little bit of room to work with. First, you're gonna not worry too much about zippering, just trying to get these to lay, or kind of pull them down again, because if they're pulled up, they're not going to want to zipper. So just kind of tug at them and get the hairs to kind of point back the direction we want them. And then what we're going to do is run our finger along, trying to press these together so that that zipper re-engages. So you can see this is bent here, so I don't think I'm going to be able to get that one. But you can see already this whole part here, how it's all coming back together. And so you're just basically going to be petting along the feather. Some of them are going to be tough. This part right here doesn't want to come back down. Again, because I was a dingus and did not preen before. So it's going to take a little bit more work to get down. If you do this every day, this should go a lot faster. Or every day of use and before storage, this should go a lot faster. Because these were for a month or two in a box in this condition, it takes a little bit more effort to get them down. But you can see now this whole feather is nice and smooth. And so we're going to just go along each of these and preen and pet them down as best we can. Okay, so you can see they're already looking much smoother and much better. There's a couple in here, like this one, that are do not want to move, and so I'll probably end up taking off like this feather here, which has stayed a little bit mussed. But the rest of them are doing pretty good at going back to looking relatively smooth in comparison to that hot mess they were before. When it comes to used feathers, you're probably not going to get back to perfect without replacing all of the feathers every time. There's always going to be certain breaks that are hard to get back together. But the more you preen them and the more often that you do this after each use, they will stay nicer longer and they will preen much easier if you just keep on top of it instead of, letting it sit in a box for 2 months like I did. So, yeah. Here you can see the good side all nice and preened together. And by comparison, I haven't finished this side yet, so this is what it kind of looked like before. And all it takes is that little bit of work. The other thing you should do before you store your wings, you should make sure that all of your fake feathers are nice and flat and stacked against one another, not folded in any way. All your feathers should be preened, and your sleeves shouldn't be tucked underneath any of the real feathers. They should be out and pulled forward. From the side, you can see that all of the feathers are nice and flat and stacked like a deck of cards. What you don't want is if, during use, a feather gets folded over, sometimes happens, and it stays that way. It might become more permanent and hard to fix, so make sure that every single one, you pull all of them flat so that they stack together nicely. On the back side, same as the front, make sure that the sleeve isn't tucked underneath any of the feathers, and that all your feathers are nice and preened and ready for storage. There are a couple of different ways to store these long term. One, you can set them on the wrists, put a couple of pads down. You will be resting the metal framework on your fabric and feather sleeves, so this is less preferred. It can eventually wear through that fabric there, but it is one way to store them, especially if you're not knocking into them. But the best way is to actually just hang it from this loop here on a wardrobe rack or bar.